It starts with you and me. Then we create a community, bringing you a new point of view. Him and her spaces.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us here on another episode of Him and Her Talk Space, where it is two life coaches giving their unique perspectives on topics that affect the Black community in hopes to move us forward. I am your him host, Chad Nails, Master Life Coach, and as always, my fantastic co-host.
Nini Wyndham. Hello, everyone.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Fantastic.
All right. Saying a big hello to our tonight's forum that we have, which of course will be growing over the course of the conversation, as always. How y'all doing tonight?
Good. I'm good.
That's what I'm talking about. So, this fucking topic got some people heated this week. I ain't even gonna front. We opened tonight's subject up to the subject of submission in relationships, and we did a little bit of kind of like, we did a little bit of the fact that you even did that. See, we tossed the subject out there last week actually, just to get feedback from people. Although we threw it out there in social media land, and we got some really explosive responses. And then when I say say explosive, I don't even just mean that they were necessarily negative, but this is a really passionate topic for people. Like, on both sides. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm for it. And other people are like, I'm against it. And then they're just going back and forth, and we trying to keep peace and whatnot. But this topic of submission, especially with the heightened level of interactivity that we see happening due to lack of what we knew 2 years ago as being normal social interaction with people, with there being kind of a reduction on that due to obviously what's been happening in the world. There's been an emphasis on the discussion between what happens in terms of our interactions on friendships and interactions relationship-wise, interactions marriages, and one of those big things has been this topic of submission. So without further ado, I'm gonna just throw the first one out there and say, what the hell does submission look like to y'all? All right, you can come off mics, you can put it in the chat. We are monitoring both. Let's see what y'all got to say on this.
I want to hear what the women have to say.
Of course.
I guess I'll say something. I guess from a marriage point of view would be just honoring or granting your husband's desires, whatever his wish may be. So it may be to be intimate with his wife, and just, you may not want to, but
Interesting.
That sounds very strong.
I don't want to say because that's the right thing to do, but
Okay.
you just go ahead and grant him, because, like I said, from the marriage point of view, that's how I see it. Just honoring his wish.
Gotcha.
Anyone else? What about a non-marriage point of view? So the single, well, it's only me. Yeah, I will say, so the single ladies.
Yes. Oh, the single ladies. Oh.
What do you think, Key? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but, and you, Tina, I see your hand too.
I thought Tina was gonna be first, but okay. Since I guess I'm single. Okay, so submissive to me is kind of picking back off of Faye. Is well, she's married, but single wise is just kind of honoring what each one of y'all want in a relationship, single or not. Whatever your partner may want, you can, help them get to that level or get there. But in my point, submissive is just kind of honoring what they want, what they would like in their life, in your life. Sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Tina.
I feel as though submissive, even if you're married or unmarried, is basically just allowing a man to lead. Allowing a man to lead, just submitting to him to guide you in life, period. Like with anything,
Okay.
I am.
Cookie, I see your hand. Lakeisha.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Was the question, what is submission? What does it mean to you?
Yes. What does it look like to you? Yeah.
So when I think of submission, I think of, I'm going to speak from a marital standpoint, being married. I think submission is a two-way street. So I know biblically, submission is the man being the head of the household. Submission is the man leading, like Tina said. But I think it encompasses, I didn't hear what Faye said, I think it encompasses a little bit of what everyone has said since I've gotten on, since I've joined. I think submission for me is trusting that my husband is able to make decisions that are like future focused, like forward, like progressive
in the best
thinking.
interest.
And in the best interest, exactly, of our family overall. So whether that means that he makes a decision for us to, I don't know, pick up and move. It can't just be in the best interest of him and his career. It has to be something that he thinks is going to best suit our family. But I also think, like Kiana said, a little bit of submission being not just from the biblical standpoint, like in a marriage, when you think about marriage from a biblical standpoint, it's you coming together as one. So I think the woman is to be submissive to her husband, and he is to be submissive to her. That's the way that I look at it. I think that no matter what you do in your marriage, it should like be a reciprocal type of thing. You know what I mean? I feel like it's trusting. It is being loyal, is honoring his wishes. Like I said, if it is something that is going to be in the best interest of our family. But I think that when people think of submission, they think of a woman that is just like kind of like whatever her husband says, she just goes with it. And that's not, and I used to think that way as well. So I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not submitting to anybody. I'm going to do what I want to do. And he ain't going to be telling me what to do. And so over time, as you grow and you mature, you understand that I do now understand that it's okay to be submissive to my husband. And I'm going to say this, if the decisions that he's making are going to be the best for our family unit. Not just for him, not just for me, all four of us. And so I don't mind submitting to a man that can be a progressive thinker. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with submitting to a man that is handling his business. Now, I'm going to be honest, and maybe I'm wrong. If I had a spouse that can't plan, like, I'm not going to be able to follow you. Like, if what you're saying doesn't make sense, like, and it's going to cause us harm, like, I can't follow that. I can't submit to that. Now, I could be wrong, and we may have some people on here that be like, well, that's not being true submission. Being truly submissive is also using your common sense. Like, you're not gonna take me to West Bubba Hell, and we ain't gonna be able to survive because I have to submit to that. The answer is no.
No, for real.
Okay. Any other ones?
I'll take a turn. I think so. When I hear submission, when I think of submission, I think honestly there are two different levels of submission. So the same submission that I will take in a relationship that's not my husband, is different than what I would give my husband. So yes, you have to show that you're able to submit in a relationship, that you're able to, you know, compromise and let a man lead in the relationship, but you're not leading my home because, you know, obviously we're not married. So I think the level of submission is different when it comes to I'm not going to give you that same access to me that I would give my husband. Like, and it's just different. Like, you're not gonna. Why would I give you the same thing that I would give my husband? My husband is special, so he deserves more of me than what a boyfriend would have of me. So I think there's different levels of submission, in my opinion.
I respect that.
All right, mine definitely falls. It falls somewhere in the mix of that. I think mine is definitely kind of something of a fusion of what Cookie and what Nini was saying. I think in the context of just in the context, and I have to be specific about this, because just in the context of being in a relationship, for me to say I'm choosing to be in a relationship with you, me as a man saying, yes, I'm choosing to be in a relationship with you, that's me saying I'm submitting to you. You know, because I'm submitting myself to this situation. I'm submitting myself to this circumstance. I'm submitting myself to this condition of being with you, which means that there has to be something that you've said or done or shown that would make you worthy for me to be okay with making that choice. And just from that, I think that's the bare bones minimum definition of submission that I can go off of. Of course, it gets more substantial when it goes to the marriage part, because there's more responsibility that goes into that. There's more trust that has to go into that. There's more commitment. So I believe that it also heightens the level of submission that can be applied to it. Aside from that, again, that is totally. I'm probably going to end up saying this a couple times tonight. It is very much conditioned on the point of you having something that I deem as valuable or as beneficial to myself, to my household, to the relationship as whole, and then me being viewed by you the same way. That is the condition. All right, that's my take. Stacey, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all?
What's good?
Okay, so this is a very sticky topic, because I think it depends on what frame of reference you're coming at this. Are you talking culturally? Are you talking religiously? You know, so depending on the frame of reference that you're talking about, it could color what you feel submission is. So I had to look up what this means. And, you know, for it to be submission in a relationship, the art of submission in romantic relationships. In healthy relationships, partners are not forced into submission. Submission is an act that is expressed mutually and voluntarily. Being submissive helps us to be less self-centered and allows us to consider the desires of others. Now, in the context of the framework of a healthy relationship, I jive with that. I think what happens a lot is when we hear this word submission, it is usually put upon the woman in the relationship. And that context especially comes from a religious and cultural background. So in religion, women are supposed to be submissive to their men. That's what I was taught. In the Black culture, women, and I see this in the Hispanic, Latino culture also, there is this underlying women are supposed to be submissive to their men. And so I really like the context of No, it's not one gender's obligation to be submissive, but in order for the relationship to be healthy, you both have to be submissive. And let me throw in a word, vulnerable to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you say vulnerable, it has less of a sting than submissive.
Oof.
Well, I
Maybe.
think it's just different.
Maybe. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, in order to trust each other, in order to not be self-centered in the relationship, in order to consider the desire of my partner, to me, that is not a gender-specific, female-specific thing, even though in, again, culture and religion, it is primarily taught as a female thing. But in the context of having this healthy relationship that I desire in my life, there are going to be times when, yes, I'm going to submit to my partner. And there's going to be times where he's going to have to submit to me, because that just means he's going to have to take me into consideration. So that's
that's interesting how you phrased that. That's very interesting how you phrased that. Yes.
Wasn't it?
Kinda, yeah. I'm gonna say it back. What I heard was there are going to be times where I'm going to submit to my partner, and then there are going to be times where he will have to submit to me.
You heard the voluntary on one side and not on the other side.
Well, no, I'm saying on both sides. I'm saying it's not a gender-specific thing. It's a healthy relationship thing.
I do agree with that.
We are both going to have to be considerate and not put ourselves first in this relationship. We're going to have to consider each other in this relationship.
Yes.
We're going to have to. Period, point blank. Now, and people can have relationships where they don't consider their partner cool in the game. That's not the relationship for me. Now, there will be people who will be cool with that. You do you, boo. For me, in a healthy relationship, that the way I perceive it is exactly that. We will voluntarily consider each other. We will have to, because otherwise it's not healthy in my eyes. If one person is the only one being never considering the other. Okay, that might work for that one person, but how about the partner? So, yes, both partners will have to, at times, consider the feelings. Like, why is that such a hard thing to understand? You're in a relationship. Don't you want to consider your partner? Don't you want to?
Amen, my sister.
That's a
Are there only
question.
2 men in here?
Question. Yeah, man.
Three.
Yeah.
Is this me and you?
I did call for the brothers. They didn't answer this week, so it's just us.
There's more than 2 in here.
I think it's just the word. I think the word.
Oh no, we got Cleve.
Absolutely.
No, it's 3 of us. It's 3 of us.
Darrell's here. Tina's husband's here.
Hey, no, thank you.
Hey,
brother.
May I? I know somebody's got their hand up. I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
No, that was her. That's her that was going. So you got it.
Okay.
Oh, where's he going?
Yeah. And obviously this is just strictly from my perspective. And I, on some level, have some agreements with some of the things that everybody said. But as who I am, as the man that I am, and I'm not submitting to a woman. One, I don't want the kind of woman that wants me to submit to her, right? I can be vulnerable to her, right? I can consider, like, she used the word consideration. The last guest used the word consideration. I 100% agree with that. But being considerate to your partner has nothing to do with what's the word? Submitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're two different things. I'm not submitting. Will I be considerate? 100%. Will I be vulnerable? Absolutely. But submit, I don't even think most, and I must be specific to Black women, I don't even think most Black women want a man that will submit to them. You want a man that's just gonna bend to your will at whenever you snap your finger? I don't think.
Can I comment on that?
Let him finish. Let him
No,
finish.
I didn't say anything.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Yes,
Please
let him finish. Please let him finish.
I don't think a woman wants that. Consideration, understanding, love, vulnerability, absolutely. On top of that, for me, if I want a woman to submit, like Cookie said, you got to show and prove, right? I have to show you something for the process to happen, because it's a process. It's not I'm a man, you a woman, bow to me. That's inappropriate. That's not good. That's not right.
Okay.
And most forward-thinking men with the proper head on their shoulders and a good vision, that's not the kind of man that they want to be to the woman that they want in their life in the first place. On top of that, no man, well, I ain't gonna say no man, but I don't think a forward-thinking real man wants a slave or someone that can't think for themselves or is like just emotionally not there enough that they'll just bow at any request. I don't think a man wants that either, a real man. But go ahead.
That part, I agree with that part.
Okay.
I agree with OJ on that. I think OJ wants OJ would submit. He just don't like the word submitting.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the
but
word.
the word.
It's the word for
It's the
everybody.
play on words.
That doesn't even make
But
sense.
why y'all telling me what I just told you? I don't want to submit. I'm not going to submit.
He said he doesn't want to submit. He didn't go into the term.
But the words that he used, Darrell, are him submitting in a sense. It's just the play on words. Yeah,
it's not a play on words.
He gave you the vulnerability. He gave you the definition of the word and said that is not what he meant. So it's like contradictory. At the end of the day, with maybe I don't know how much experience he has, but maybe a little more experience, you got to submit, and the submitting got to be taking place on both ends. It's like one person just can't submit, and the others, then I understand what he's saying. It's more of a aspect where you're just constantly being dominated. So I get it. But if both people are in submission, where it's a thing where it's a mutual and more of a loving and caring, and I'm allowing you to lead, and I can recognize that those leadership qualities in you, and that's why I chose you as a mate, then maybe I can trust you because I know I can understand your decision making. You're not going to do nothing foolish, and if that's my time to submit, and you gonna grab the reins and ride the horse, then let's go. If it's my turn, guess what? I'm gonna knock the whole building down. So I know she already ready to go and say, okay, I can trust those acts and what you're gonna do, because you're not gonna do nothing to hurt us as a union. So the word is kind of harsh, but at the end of the day, and if you truly understand it and know what it really, really means and how to apply it to your relationship, then it's a beautiful word.
Yeah, that's why we said context. That's why I said earlier that context was so important.
I'll say this. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you good. Go ahead.
Just for everybody, I'm not coming from the biblical standpoint. That is not my standpoint. That's not my foray.
Thank you for sharing that.
I ain't gonna pretend like that's my space to exist in. It's not.
Okay.
So, I know most of the people on here are coming from that space, or at least dipping in both spaces.
right, we got. Appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that extra bit of detail. Nene, Stacy, Lakeisha, go ahead.
I just have a question because you might have said it and I might have missed it, and if you did, I do apologize. Can you give me a short definition of what the word submission? When you hear the word submission, what does that word mean to you? And then what does the word mean to you? What is your definition of, in a short sentence or two?
You want me to speak shortly?
Yes, please.
Do your best, man. Do your best.
I know. That's all good. Well, what it used to mean to me was very negative. It was about being dominant, but now it means more of placement, like which position you're playing. I am going to fall back. That person is going to lead. It's more because we're talking about in the context of a relationship, correct?
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
So when you go ahead, I'm sorry. I thought you were
No,
done.
go.
Because when you were explaining before, you said you're not gonna, as a man, as a real man, you're not going to bow down to your partner.
Heard that too.
But then you're saying that it's just for the person to lead. So is it bowing down, or is it just someone leading? Someone being the head of the household or leading in a particular area in the relationship.
That was just me being extra with the words. But,
so not bow down.
It's not. Well, I was. You know how I talk. I be extra with the words. But and the husband's on here, or the husband on here. Being a good leader and is knowing when to step aside and let the appropriate person drive the car at that moment. That's what I was shown.
Okay.
In my life.
Yeah.
That don't mean you not leading.
Mm-hmm.
That means, like, if you run a company, you ain't doing all the work. You get people to do the proper play their position.
Mm-hmm.
You do this, you do that. I'm doing this, but I need to focus over here. So while I'm doing this over here, you do that since you do this well. That's real leadership.
Okay.
Right. And I think that applies to the situation we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Thank you for explaining.
Absolutely. Stacy, then Keisha.
Okay. So, again, I feel like this is a very loaded word, and it depends on the context, and it depends on the culture that you come from, because typically this word is used for women in context to being in relationship to men. I never really hear it, and if someone else has, please let me know. Has it been used in context to men? To me, there's a gender bias in this word of submission. It is geared towards women. So my issue is, as a Black woman, do I want a man that I can roll over? Of course not.
Thank you.
But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. What I do want is a man that I can trust and submit to, because I know he's not going to lead us over a cliff. So he has to show up a certain way for me. The problem is, in my experience, the men that I hear beating their chests the loudest about submission are usually the men that I'm side-eyeing. Because to me, it's like, you don't have to proclaim that, you just are. So you don't have to proclaim you're an alpha male and I must submit to you. When you come into the room, I know who you are. I know what you bring. I know. I feel safe with you. I know you got this. So see, this is the issue. Men complain about us Black women being too independent and we don't submit. But the real issue is, are you providing a space for us to trust you? Is that space truly there for us to trust you, to hand over the reins? Because see, I do a lot of work to maintain my life like this.
Okay.
You know, it took a lot of work for me to get here. It took a lot of work financially, emotionally, mentally, spirit.
You're muted. Yourself.
Come back in.
And talk about, well, you got to submit to me if you want to be in a relationship. Oh, excuse me, what? So there is so many layers to this. It's not just about submitting. It's also about showing improvement. Are you a man that I would even feel like, am I going to leave my dog with you? Much less my child with you? Much less, can I trust you to, if something happens to me, can I trust that you have my back? I mean, there's so many layers to this.
It is.
And so, again, depending on the mentality of the people involved, the culture, is there religion involved? I mean, this can go 1,000 different ways. But I think it's a misnomer to always say, we so independent, we don't want to give the Black man the reins and we want to be in control. No, and I'm an alpha.
Kind of.
And let me tell you, no, I don't wanna, but I do it because I gotta. And I'm not going to allow someone in my space that I got a side eye. Listen, if you living in your mama's basement and I got a house and a car, I mean, we're not on equal footing. And then you want me to submit to you? How'd that work? When you can't even provide for me. You can't even give me the same standard of living that I give myself. I gotta live down to your standard. You're not living up to mine. So come on. There's so many layers to this. So when you get mad at me because I don't want to submit to you.
Points being made.
When you get mad at me because I don't want to submit to you, no, Negro, I'm not living down to your standard. So, yeah, this is not simple. This is multifaceted, but it gets labeled a certain way. Oh, we just want to be hard and independent and in charge, and you don't know how to submit and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that that's not true also.
Thank you.
On some levels.
Absolutely.
But on a lot of level, as a woman, I want a man in my life who can take charge. But I'm not just handing the reign over to Tom, Dick, and Harry for you to come in and fuck up everything that I've done. Like, I'm not. So if you call that not being submissive, oh well. If you call that being independent, oh well. If you call that not wanting men in my life, oh well. No, I have a certain standard. And you have to come up to my level. I'm not coming down to yours. Because if
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question on that. When you say standards,
yes.
If you could list even just two of the main standards that you believe a man would have to be at or above for you to feel safe in submitting to, what would those be?
Okay, so I would say emotionally, Spirit. I mean, there's a lot, the whole gambit, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, financially. Because see, I know as me, I know the work I've put in. I know the blood, sweat, and tears that I've put into work on myself emotionally, work on myself mentally, work on myself in all these areas so that I could show up as a partner that is bringing something to the table. I don't just have my hand out. I actually bring something to the table.
The table again.
So
this was last week. This was last week. We were here with this. So yeah.
Right. So emotionally, I know I can be a support to my partner. I know how to love my partner. I have worked on my wounds, traumas, and issues so that I'm not dragging this baggage into the relationship and making you pay for all the stuff that I've gone through. I'm doing that work. I've done the work. I continue to do that work. So when I talk about standards and levels, that to me is I need someone who is on that same wavelength. You know, so it's not just about financially, but you know, if it be told, yeah, I got a house, I got a car, I don't have a lot of debt. I mean, you know, yeah, even on that level, can you provide for me the same lifestyle that I provide for myself?
Okay. All right, I'm glad I asked. Thank you. Cookie, something else to add? Jesus.
I wanted to say something about what OJ said. I think he made a good point when he said that submission is like, well, I don't know if he said submission is like, he said it's like playing your position. So at first, before he really explained it, I was kind of like, oh boy, here we go, OJ. I'm gonna have to talk to you afterwards. But I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying in that as a man, he may be viewing submission as not playing his true position, and he's not coming from a biblical standpoint. But I also think like the word submission for both males and females, depending on your past experiences, how you were raised, your culture, could be a trigger word. Because I remember OJ said something last week about the word deserve. He used the word deserve as something, and I remember that just like kind of spun me around. It was like he said, somebody MF and BI something. I was like deserve, and then I had to kind of like think about it, like what was that? And I think that Alonda, I think her name was, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She kind of broke it down very well. And she was like, well, what he's trying to say, or what I think he's trying to say is X, Y, and Z. I think that when OJ said playing your position, we all have roles, whether we want to admit it or not. If you are in a marriage, you do have a role. You know, I think a lot of women of color, I can't speak for other women because I'm a woman of color, were raised to be very independent. And so I'm going to be a little bit transparent. My mother, very strong-willed woman, married for many, many decades, taught my sister and I, raised my sister and I to be very independent and not really reliant on a man. But my dad did most of everything in the house. So I guess that could be kind of like a contradiction, but it really, really wasn't. And so then that spilled over into my marriage, and it came off it could be like a really negative way. Like you have a spouse who came from a two-parent household where the father pretty much did everything. The mother kind of, in a sense, submitted to her husband, playing his position. And then I'm coming like, you're not going to be telling me what to do. So just to sum it up, I had to mature a lot. I had to recognize and kind of self-analyze and figure out where all that stuff was coming from. Like, I want to be independent, but I also wanted to be married, and you can't be independent if you're married. So, like kind of really kind of figuring out what my issues were or what my hang up was. And like I said earlier, being able to submit is like a reciprocal thing, in my opinion. And I think it goes right back to what OJ said in terms of playing your position. Now, I don't want to be too long-winded, but the young lady that just spoke, when she said in terms of having standards, that's going to look very different for a person that has already established themselves. So like my husband and I, we got together when we were very, very young. Neither of us had nothing. We didn't have anything. So we kind of built together. I could see myself being at a certain point now and meeting a gentleman that doesn't have certain things in place. And that could just be, you know, life experiences. You know, people get divorced, people lose jobs, people file bankruptcy. A lot of things could go on. And so I think it takes a lot of understanding, maturity, and communication to say, listen, this is what I would like. Do you see yourself being able to supply these needs? But not like really kicking a person's back in, because at the end of the day, if you meet someone and they don't have the things that you want, that's cool. Like, that's not the person for you. You let the person know the reasons why and just move on. But I could see what she's saying, like who has time to, at a certain age, and I don't know how old she is, like 50 years old, kind of, you know, pacify a man and build him up. But also I feel you have to be sometimes understanding that people have bad situations or unfortunate situations that occur in life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Got another hand up, gentleman on the iPhone. Go ahead, sir. You can take yourself off mute.
What's up, Chad? What's up, Nene?
Hey.
Chad Thomas from Livingston, man. We go way back. You know it, Chad Nails.
What?
So, how's everybody doing?
Good, brother.
Well, I really like the fact that Lakeisha said, about playing your role. Being married, and that is very, very important. And, it wasn't until my uncle said that to his wife, jokingly around, like she was doing something. He was like, all right, now stay in your lane, stay in your lane. And, we took it as a joke at first, being newly married, like stay in your lane, don't say, don't do that. However, once you add different dynamics of marriage, like children, homes, careers, and everything to it, there are roles that we play and things that we take care of. And, you have to be willing, like you said, submission goes both ways. As a father, a husband, a servant leader in my home, I still submit to my wife when it comes to the children, because that's her avenue, that's her lane. I take her opinion weighs heavily more when it comes to the children. And in the reverse, when it comes to different things that affects more of the household, she then comes and leans towards me for those things. And we go back and forth. And I don't try to get in there and make those decisions about the kids, because I feel that she knows best. And, we do have roles. If you are, depending on how religious you are, we do have roles that are assigned to us by God and by our union if you are following the commandments. So if we follow those commandments and we follow those unions, yes, that whole submission thing, I think it has received a negative connotation over the years. I think it's more also too just the simple fact of what most women have been through early on in their dating experiences that have kind of soured them towards, finding, when they do find that man that can trust, that is going to put their, best efforts forward. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to receive it. Mm-hmm. And when you don't know how to receive it, then, that's what makes things difficult. That's where your conflict comes in. That's where your disagreements come in. And, after 11 years, it's nothing that's learned overnight. It took a while. It takes a while, Marriage is 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no call-outs, no sick days, no personal days. No matter what, it's a job that you have to show up to all the time and be a part of. And if you're not going to do it, then you don't enter into a union like that where you have to share things like that. But it's when I hear women say that they want to submit. I think a lot of women nowadays have become they're so used, they've had bad experiences, so they become career-oriented, career-minded, independent-minded, and then they're so used to doing things by themselves for so long that, to switch gears all of a sudden, especially if, when it comes to that faith, is not really heavily grounded or rooted too hard, that's going to be a big thing for them to do.
All right. First and foremost, good to see you, man. Secondly, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate that. Jeez, alive. I don't even know where to go next with this, yo. I will definitely say, between what my man and what Lakeisha said, like this whole thing of these roles, and that's probably where we can go next with it. These roles that we have, and how we kind of like find them. And I'm thinking about it in terms of when I naturally think of roles, I think of what people say, like, oh, the man's supposed to be the protector of the household, so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, yeah, understandably. And somebody actually fought me on this last week. And I was like, okay, let's talk about just that aspect of protector of the household. That is coming historically from a time point where wars and battles and things were happening more often. You might have to defend the home from bandits, trying to, roam in the countryside, trying to, see whoever they can get in this, that, and the third. Naturally, the man being the stronger person, the stronger naturally, and more commonly, the stronger and faster person in the household, he was the one to fend off. And that's how that role kind of became naturally assigned to us over time, right? And then scientifically it's proven with the whole, we have larger body mass, we have faster twitch muscles, we're able to shed weight and gain muscle faster, all this stuff. Does that mean that a woman is useless in terms of defense of the home? Absolutely not. If somebody's coming in and I got the shotgun and my wife knows how to use the knife, I'm good. Does that mean that she needs to? No, it means I'm taking point.
She should be protecting the children.
You know what I'm saying? Or just even in terms of helping me protect the house in general. Like, okay, if I'm coming in and somehow for whatever reason I get got, and I say the code word to her, whatever, with my dying breath, and she's like, okay, let me find my crouch position and get the 9 while they come up the stairs or whatever. But and that's just throwing a scenario out. And somebody hit me last week and was like, oh, so men are stronger than women. What about Serena Williams? And I was like,
what about her?
I had to pause and be like, you want to use to defend your stance that men aren't always stronger than women, probably one of the most physically powerful women in the world. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do to prove your point. Can you please sit down somewhere? Oh, well, her husband's not stronger than her. Serena Williams has gone on record of saying she would never want to play on the men's circuit. She'd be last. As strong as she is, as much as she's proven herself, she has gone on record of saying she'd be last if she had to play the men's circuit. So you used it. So somebody tried it, and yes, it was a woman. Yes, it was a woman, and yes, it was a black woman. But somebody tried it, and I had to say, I was like, I can't even rock with you on that. You used not even an outlier, but an extreme outlier to try and refute that. Men are stronger than women, generally. Men are faster than women, generally. So the protector role, 9.5 times out of 10 is going to go to us. Get it? Provider role. Women were more so taking care of home. And I definitely wanted to touch on this because it's not a question of whether women work or not, because as much as I believe in men being the provider of the home, I also believe that it's not for a woman to just lounge around either, because even from both a religious standpoint as well as a cultural one, women do stuff. And it's not just and it doesn't even just relegate to just tending to the children, though that does naturally fall to them. Why? Because the children come out of them, they're naturally nursing them, so on and so forth. And I get all that. But, and this is why I said my position is a little bit more of a progressive one. But if I'm with somebody and I'm seeing that she already has an understanding of what her gifts and talents are, and she's going out there and being like, oh, I know how to do this and I know how to do that, this, that, and the third, and that's what you wish to contribute to the house and stuff like that. Unless I'm in a position where I am in a provider position, and I mean this specifically financially, unless I am in a provider position where I can say I make enough where I cover my portion and what you're making, to the point where you have the option to work or not. If I'm not in that position, I would never even offer that. If I was, then I would say what I would say to her is this: not that you, I need you home, this, that, and the third, and so on and so forth. I'm like, babe, we are making as much as we're making right now, which is amazing. It's fantastic. If you want to take a break, if you wish to stop, understand that we have enough. Even for just what I'm doing, understand that we have enough. If you wish to stop and you want to pursue it, and when I say stop, I don't even just mean just stop, but if you wish to pursue other things about you that are also going to contribute to our overall well-being, or to your overall well-being, which in turn contributes to the overall well-being of the house, cool, great, fine. You know what I'm saying? But that's her choice. That's not her choice. That's not her. For me, that's her choice, not her obligation. Let me speak specifically for myself. And also, the concept of the roles, and this is something that I wanted to say in regards to what OJ was saying as far as not spinning, even though you already clarified it more. My understanding of submitting is that, and we already kind of touched on it with the playing our part thing. My understanding is that me coming into a relationship, there's no way in the world that it is humanly possible for me to lead and absolutely do everything that's required of the relationship perfectly. And I said this to somebody earlier this week to say, when you're in a relationship, is there something that, just yesterday, I asked my friend, does his girlfriend do something better than the relationship? And he said, yeah. I said, in those times where you need that skill, do you defer to her? He said, yeah. I said, that is submission. Mm-hmm. That is an aspect of submission. It is you being able to say, hey, you know what? We need this and you're better than me. So, and this is useful. This is something that we need. This is something that's useful for the household or whatever. All right, you take point because I know that you're better than this other. Does that mean that I don't do anything with it at all? No, it means that in you taking point on that, I can sit and watch and maybe learn something else that'll help me improve in that area. This is something that was powerfully exampled in my own household with my late father. He, growing up, he thought he was supposed, because he was a man, he thought he was supposed to be in charge of the finances. But my dad sucked at finances, and as such, we found, as a family, we found ourselves in a lot of financial trouble, almost to the point where we lost our house. My mother, not for any specific training or anything like that, she's an English teacher, but she keeps records like she's the head of the IRS. She keeps financial records like the head of the IRS. I promise you, I could pull up a box of notebooks where she has everything notated down to who she spoke to, what time, the weather, what they had for lunch, this, that, how many kids they got. She can get it. She can get all of that. What was paid, what was sent out, what was taken in, and she's excellent with that. And it took him years to get to the point of saying, I realized that for the sake of the house, this is not something that I need to be the head of. You naturally have, You naturally had it when I met you. And so I submit to your leadership in this area for the sake of our relationship, for the sake of our household. And not only did everything get organized, but in him submitting and in that specific area with the roles being reversed as far as who was leading who, he became better at finances to the point where she was able to not need to be so on every dotting every I, crossing every T, and she could be like, "Hey, Sam, can you do this?" and be like, "Yeah, I got it." And he had demonstrated, like we were talking about, being able to show and prove and demonstrate. He had demonstrated it enough to the point where she said, "Well, can you handle this?" He'd say, "Yeah, I got it." And she'd be like, "All right, cool," and it'd be done. That was within the last 10 years or so of them being together. Did he figure that out? But he figured it out. And they not only did they improve financially as a result, as a household, as a family, but her being able to trust him in that area and him having more confidence in that area added to their overall relationship, to, you know, where there was more love to be had. So it plays, like Stacey was saying, it plays into a lot of areas, just a lot of moving parts, but to come in it the right way, it plays into a lot of different areas. And the next part that
Cookie, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Your hand was up.
Oh yeah, we did have hands up. Go ahead.
She says she's fine.
All right. Did I cover everything?
Chad. You know, it's funny. A lot of things that you mentioned, I went through those things with, with my wife and my marriage. When you talk about, one person wasn't working, and when we had the kids, I went out there and I worked 2 jobs in order to cover her salary while she stayed home with the kids, took care of the kids. But also she went back to school to get her degree and finish her degree, right, because I saw the long-term picture that adds to the household. And and then we do things and we take turns in doing. Just like she finished, and she finished her degree, she got a job in her field, and she's now working her field. I went back and cut back on my 2 jobs. Now I'm now home more with the children with the kids in the afternoon, doing the homework, which is what I actually want to do, and be there like that to cover that education part. And then I'm also going back again for another master's. So now she's working with me in order to do that. So I think it works both ways when we have to make those sacrifices that go along with it. And I think for a better part, what you were saying is a lot of people, they keep saying submit. I think it's more evolved. Like you say, the role of the protector, I think that role has evolved, and just the expectations of marriage from back in the day to where it is now has evolved. And the people, as they get into it, they haven't evolved with what marriage is today. They still are basing their ideals on old school, but they don't know that now this is a new school. My wife is not the cook. I'm the cook. Mm-hmm. My wife. I knew that when I met my wife, wasn't the cook. So, those things, those expectations of her cooking, I didn't have those things. And I evolved, and I was like, okay, good, fine. When we get into a marriage, I think you have to let that person create their own expectations, because we get into it with so many, and then when you're let down because that person doesn't live up to it, then that's where the arguments start. But once I step back and let her create her own expectations, now as we move forward, as we kept moving forward, it was much better and much easier, because now, okay, if you only can do up to 2, then that's all you're going to do. Mm-hmm. If you can cook 3 meals, and like you say, if I'm willing to let her cook those meals, okay, whatever you do, that's good. I'm going to let you do it and let you handle it. And that's fine, and even like you say, as the protector, you know, that role could be encompass many things. You know, just something simple. My wife will tell you if she was here, just something about locking the doors every night. Okay. Yeah. I every night I learned. I saw my uncle do it. Everybody, you know, the men in my family, certain things I saw them do. So every night while my girls and my ladies are asleep, before I get ready to lay down or sit down and do something, I walk around again and just make sure, you know, certain lights are off, certain doors are locked, and they're okay and everything like that, you know, as far as making sure that, you know, it's part of my responsibility, like you say, as a protector. But even that role has expanded and has evolved into so much.
Excellent point. Cookie, you got to hand up what?
I think that with Thomas, right? Is it Thomas?
Yes, Cookie, come on.
I think that what Thomas is describing is like my girlfriend always says, it's a partnership. There is no, I can't wash dishes. Like, I use the example of my girls when they were younger. My mother always said to me, she said, your husband does more than the average man. He would bathe the kids. First of all, because my job was very time consuming. I worked in Child Protective Services. I worked late many nights. And for the most part, Eric had the girls. I'll admit that now, before I went in. He had the girls a lot. He really, really did. And I think a lot of that came from guilt that I didn't want to admit that, because I'm the mom, and he worked. It wasn't that he didn't work. It's just that I worked very late hours. And so what Thomas is describing is just a partnership. And that's when you come together with a person. Isn't that what you're doing? I think a lot of people get married and they still have this individualistic type of mindset. People are married and jealous of their spouses. Let's talk about it. People don't want to talk about that. People are married. They don't want their spouses to outdo them. But how am I outdoing you when we're a couple, and whatever we attain in this union, in this marriage, is going to benefit the entire family? I think people are selfish. I think people are unwilling to acknowledge when they are wrong. They're very stubborn, a lot of us, and people don't want to acknowledge when they just not right. And that's where the issue comes in. When you are married, or even in a relationship before you get married, because the courting part of it or the dating part of it is the prerequisite, is it not, to before you get married? You got to check all of that stuff. Now, honestly, sometimes you don't find things out until, like Thomas says, you evolve, you mature, you see that you've been acting foolish, immature, you know, self-centered, in a self-centered mindset, or having a self-centered mindset, and hopefully you grow. And if you don't, or if you're not willing to change in your marriage or in your relationship, then you're going to find yourself one of two things: very upset and very unhappy, or by your daggone self. You have to be willing to open up and change, and to acknowledge when you're not doing things right. You can't always point the finger at one person, but never look at yourself and see what you've done wrong. Oh, so you're perfect? And I think that's where the issue comes in, is that people are not willing to, and I know we're not talking about that part of it, but I feel like that comes into this, you know, into being submissive. People don't want to submit, but they don't want to acknowledge things about themselves, and that's why they don't want to submit. They don't want to acknowledge that they're controlling. They don't want to acknowledge that they're not willing to give a person credit. The person that, like somebody said, somebody may be better with the finances. So if your wife is better with the finances, wouldn't you be a fool not to allow your wife to handle that part of your marriage?
Yes.
Say it again.
That's how I feel. I just feel like it's a partnership. When you're married, you're supposed to trust. That word keeps coming up. How can if I don't trust you, even in a friendship, there is no relationship. There is no moving forward. If I cannot trust you to have our best interests at heart, then that's just a wrap in general. You know what I mean? Like, we have to learn how to acknowledge when we're wrong, just suck it up. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody jacks up sometime, and stop holding grudges, especially against your spouse. Leave that stuff for outside. And your home should be your sanctuary. And your home should be where you could be the most vulnerable. And your home should be where you could say, listen, that hurt my daggone feelings when you said I was whack. And I ain't whack. So, like, I'm just using as an example, like, that hurt my feelings when you didn't take into consideration that I got all this on my back. I'm like sinking, I'm drowning. How could you watch your spouse drown? Whether it's drowning in a job that they dislike, and you don't want to move, and you're gonna like, well, you just gonna have to deal with it, or drowning with a whole heap of responsibility from work, taking care of the kids, taking care of you, taking care of other things outside of the household, and you watch your spouse drown. You don't need to be married, and that's just how I feel.
Yo, this is the first time I ever 100% agree with you. Go ahead, girl.
Listen, I triple agree.
Mm-hmm.
I triple agree because, as she said, and as Thomas was talking about, it's about partnership. If one person cannot do something, then it's like, okay, then what can you bring to the table? What are you able to do? But then when one person is doing everything and that other person think just going to work is sufficient, like, come on. So then what's the purpose? Like, you kind of like better off by yourself. Like you're doing it alone. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's just being considerate of that person. You love that person. It's not about just saying that you love the person. It's putting the actions to work is what it is. That's coming together and communicating is another thing. Like, what's going on? Is everything okay? What do you need help with? Okay, I'm not able to do this, but I can do that to bring something to the table.
Much appreciated for that. You're damn right. Damn right. Stacey, right. I got a hand up with Stacey. Go ahead.
So I want to bring the example of submission into a societal context.
Let's go.
As Black people, we were forced into submission as slaves.
Now you're talking.
That's a context. Yes, go ahead.
So again, when you talk about submission and having consideration and trusting and it being a partnership, again, as a Black people, did you want to hear where you gotta submit because I'm the white man and I'm in charge and blah, 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 blah. I'm better than you and blah, I'm smarter than you. I'm more powerful than you. I'm the leader of this country. I'm the majority of this country. Ain't nobody was trying to hear that, but we did what we had to do to survive. So again, when we take it into that societal context of we were forced into submission, do you really want a partner that is obligated or forced into submission? Or do you want a partner that is participating in being your partner, being considerate, putting your needs and wants and desires ahead of theirs? So there is nothing wishy-washy or, about me wanting to have a partner that, yes, I feel safe enough to submit to. Because in the context of being Black people, we didn't feel safe, but we were forced to do it just because that person claimed power over me. And so, and being in a relationship, do we want to have that same energy context in our relationships? And I would say no, but I think when we think about it in the larger perspective of submission and how we were forced to submit, it makes you take a step back like, yeah, that was horrific. So again, I just don't, it worries me that sometimes this submission can take on a tyranny aspect if you're not careful, if you're not wise, if you're not mature, if you're not caring, if you're not loving. So I think there's a real ebb and flow that has to go with this. And I feel like the partners have to be very it has to be something that both partners are volunteering, trusting, understanding the context of this. Because in unmature hands, in unwise hands, and partners that are not ready for this can go way left.
Quite so.
And again, we have these cultural things and we have these religious, ideas in the back of our minds that, perhaps back in biblical times, there was an immediacy to submitting to your husband because of, the landscape and, women needed men for protection. I mean, in a real way, to protect the family, to protect the kids, you needed that in a real way. But we don't live in that same context anymore. So I think we have to find our way again with that. Because I'm not marrying a man just so that I can survive. Just so that my children can survive. Just because I'm property. And so, yeah, again, Black people were property and we had to submit. So again, I think the context is changing. We have to evolve with that context. And so as we evolve with that context, perhaps submission can evolve with us. So that's what I have to say.
I love that you added that. I really do, because there is a historical component to, I think, why specifically our community has something of an issue with it. Thomas, go ahead.
Well, Stacey, I listened very carefully to a lot of things you said, and a couple things stood out. And I do a lot of reading, and I just want to first touch on the fact of the word you said, submission. Like you say, Black people were forced into submission. The beauty of words and the definition of words is that they have many different meanings. So in one context, yes, Black people were forced into submission when we came here and when we were slaves. However, let's go back to the examples of when the slaves were together and they were on the plantation. One, they believed in marriage. Two, they believed the husband and the wife and the family all together, the nuclear family all together, intact, all in one place. So even with everything going on around them, the example, the submission was kind of double-sided. The submission, forced in submission is to do slavery, but then again, the wives would take care of the home, make sure the food was had, make sure the husband had clean clothes to go out there and work in the fields, make sure that the kids had the clothes, and make sure the kids had what they need. When you fast forward that and you go to you come up to the industrial age. When you come to the industrial age, and the wives were at home again. They made sure, I had uncles that worked on railroads, and my aunt stayed at home, but she made sure when he had to go, that uniform was together. She made sure he had a hot meal every time he came home. When he left, his lunch was packed and everything was done. As we have evolved, as the roles have changed, again, instead of submission, it's more of a humbleness. And we have to be more humble when it comes into doing this. And sometimes when we are for you, I like to tell different women I meet or friends of mine that are not married yet, sometimes you have to change the verbiage that you use. Because when you use certain definitive terms like I am not going to do, I am not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, words become actions, become habits, and they become that's what you do. So you even unconsciously, subconsciously, you start to take on those actions. So the first thing I would say, and I would just say to you, is if you have a lot to offer, and and you speak with a very, very much intelligence, but now change the verbiage of, oh, I don't need a man to protect me, I don't need a man to provide for my children. No, you may not. However, it's more along the lines of, I would like to have someone to work with me. I would like to have someone there with me, and when you do that, you kind of open yourself up for more, for more of either the right person, or deciphering, when that man does come across your path, deciphering whether or not he or she would do it. I will tell you this, my wife, I was not supposed to meet my wife. Okay, I met my wife online. Black people meet. And I kept forgetting to cancel my subscription. Now, it wasn't that I wasn't meeting women in person. I said, well, let me try something new, let me do it. But I kept forgetting to cancel my subscription. And when I kept forgetting to cancel my subscription, she hit me up. And when she hit me up, and I went and looked at her, and I met her on her profile, it wasn't me that chose her. I was with my friend who was a female, and she saw her. She said, Thomas, something's interesting about her. And when she said something was interesting about her, I said, okay, let me take another look. And when I took another look and everything, and I called you, I kid you not, when my wife called me, the first time she called me, I said, hey, I can't talk to you right now. I'm about to go out on a date.
Oh, snap.
Okay. And
Playboy.
and I said, can I call you back later?
Oh, no.
And she still called me, and she still called. I still called her. She still answered my call when I met her. So, I met my wife in January. I proposed to my wife in August. I was married the following March. Okay. So as a man, I knew what I wanted. I knew how I wanted to be. I knew what type of life I wanted to have, and that's what it was. She wasn't perfect. She's not perfect. Neither am I perfect. But over the years, we have both learned that humbleness, which is good, because just like Cookie said, before I was working 2 jobs, 90 hours a week. She was home with the kids all the time, and here I am out there working. Reverse it. Now she worked for child services, and now she's the one out there doing that now. And then now I'm the one home. But it wasn't until the pandemic that we were able to sit down with one another and have a true open conversation. And I said, at one point, I didn't think you appreciated what I was doing. But like they said, the communication had to be open and honest. So, like I said with that, Stacey, so, as Black people, as African Americans, we have always had that family, that marriage image from the slavery, during the slavery time, from slavery, even with everything that was going on around us, we have always had that there. We just, again, as we evolve, like you said, we just have to change little different things and be more open to adjust or evolve different things about ourselves.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chanel. Yep.
Okay, so I was gonna actually agree with, I think, is his name Thomas, the one that was just speaking? Thomas? Yeah. I like what you said about the verbiage that's used, because I think that sometimes we get caught up in the semantics of it. So sometimes I think it's important to, when you do get in a relationship, that you constantly revisit and reflect and have those conversations, because what we thought we might have wanted at the start of it might not be, we realized in the midst of it that we might not want that anymore. So I know for me personally that I'm like, okay, I wouldn't mind submitting to somebody. I'm a hardworking single parent. If I was to meet somebody, I would want somebody to take up some of the slack and allow me to not have to do so much brain work and thinking, right? So I wouldn't, as I sit right now in this space, I feel like I wouldn't mind. If I was to get with somebody and it wouldn't feel comfortable, then I would probably have to say, okay, I thought this is what I wanted, but now I realize that as I communicated it to you or expressed it to you, I don't think this is what it doesn't feel good. It's not what I truly envisioned. It's not playing out the way that I thought it would. So it shouldn't be where you just keep moving forward with it. It should be where you feel comfortable enough to express that to the other person. And I think it's okay to identify that our life experiences has helped us craft these ideals and beliefs about what each person's or gender role should be in a relationship. You know, we have family members that have, you know, demonstrated different ways of being in relationships or not, and that helped us develop what we are, you know, what we think is ideal. So, I mean, I think it would just be, you know, we have to have a conversation and be very clear. And if we're not clear, then we need to revisit and be like, you know what, I know I said this, but maybe I need to revisit that and really think about what it is that I need or want. And we need to discuss what your role would be in helping me satisfy that or meet that. And then vice versa.
I just wanted to clarify something. In saying that I don't need a man to exist, what I'm talking about is not my fundamental desire. I'm talking about in practicality for survival.
Okay.
So fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on, you know, what your view of it is, in America, at this point in time, you know, having a husband is not a requirement for my survival. So I do not need a man for my survival. Because if I needed a man for my survival, then I wouldn't be here.
Okay.
So as in other countries, culturally, and just pragmatically, yeah, they do. You know, I would see, you know, women from Africa, women from India, women from third world countries, like it's a necessity.
Right.
So that's the context that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the desires of my heart and my unwillingness or willingness. I'm talking about in a very practical terms, you know, whether it was, you know, way back in the day when women didn't have the right to own things, to have businesses. Men were a man in your life was practical. It was necessary, whether it was your father or it was your husband.
Right.
It had to be a male person in order for you to survive. In this day and time, we're not living by that same context.
Yes.
So, but there are countries where they are very much still living by that context.
Agreed.
And fortunately for me, I'm not living in that context. So to have a partner, to have a man in my life is a desire of my heart, but it's not necessary for me to survive. Like, I'm not going to die today or tomorrow.
Good night.
And I haven't.
Good night.
You know, because I don't have a man in my life at certain parts.
Stay.
So I just wanted to clear that up because I think that notion gets conflated a lot of times.
Okay.
You know, you don't need a man and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the practicality of mere survival. Mm-hmm. Like there was a time I wouldn't have had a bank account. I couldn't have owned a house. I couldn't have drove a car.
Yeah, and that's fairly recent.
Absolutely.
Somebody said that. I remember reading. I think I was doing the research for this. I think I saw that somebody had written. I think somebody wrote this on one of your posts, as a response to one of yours from last week. Mm-hmm. That women have only recently been allowed to hold accounts separate from their from male counterparts back in like early 1970s or 69 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was within the last 50 to 60 years. So we're talking about a relatively small, span of time. So yeah, I absolutely get where you come from with that. And that's why I was saying in the chat, like, while I do still believe that there is a need for us, absolutely, but the context of what it means to exist and survive, especially for the modern time frame that we're in, that's changed. So I do believe that we still need each other, but I believe that how we need each other is different. So I'm with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that.
I think we need to consider too the ability for different races, right, to provide and stuff. I think the roles in how things have changed have been impacted a great deal for a number of reasons. Number one, in terms of like people of color or of African descent, our roles had changed because of racism, oppression, and things like that. So it's not the same when it comes to like white women and other ethnic groups. So another thing that changed our roles was, the war efforts, World War I, World War II, when a lot of the men went off to war, and then women were forced to assume different roles in society to help us continue on. That's one thing. But then once we came back from that, there was like this feminist movement. And the feminist movement, I have a problem with it because those females, the females that benefit from the feminist movement are not black.
I'm not sure.
It's not black females.
Oh, we're going to talk about that, huh? Okay.
But it's relevant too when people start to look at how their ideals about gender roles are developed. Because if you have a white woman saying, I want to go into the workplace and I want to make just as much as Chad, or what? Not this Chad, the other Chad.
White Chad, yeah.
White Chad.
That's funny.
Her ability to become a higher earner is different than the black woman that would do it. Mm-hmm. So, our ability as two income families and things like that has to be taken into consideration too when people start thinking about what does it mean to be submissive, or who's going to be the dominant figure in the home, or who's going to be the breadwinner in the home. Those things have to be taken into consideration too when you start thinking about it. So I feel like it's so many different factors that can go into this that we can't really generalize it, and we have to start thinking about the things that's really relevant to us as people, and what that means, because there's no way you got one person making 30-something thousand, a man making 30-something thousand, and the expectation is that he's going to be able to take care of a whole household in this day and time. That's just not realistic.
It is impossible. In this country, it is impossible.
Right.
Well, no, let me not say impossible. It is virtually largely impossible, because there are still hard. Some parts.
It would be hard.
There's still some parts of the country where 30,000 is actually
balling.
But exactly. Thank you. there's still some parts of this country where 30,000 you're good.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Maybe
most
for
of us
one
live.
person.
Most of us live in the metro section of yes. What? No, but even with a family.
Where's that at? Because I can move there.
I'm going there with you too. I'm moving there also.
Where's that, Chad?
Yeah, where's that at? Let me know.
That's gonna be someplace. That's gonna be someplace in the sticks.
You gotta go to pick up truck in a trailer first.
Right. You're gonna be living in the sticks someplace.
I'll just say this. It's one of those areas where you probably sound more like this.
Well, if you're out there, you ain't got to worry about Omicron because ain't nobody around you.
Listen, I ain't worried about.
You mean Omarion?
Omarion,
Omarion,
Delta, all of them. Ain't nobody around you.
I don't care what they call it. Just anyway.
Go ahead, Tina. I see your hand.
Go ahead. Yep.
So I forget the question that you asked, but I just wanted to say things in general, just listening to everyone speak. I haven't said much during the duration of the Zoom meeting. I just feel like, well, with me, biblically, and I know it's 2021, and I know everyone is not, spiritual or, whatever. Men are supposed to be the providers and the protectors. The women are supposed to be the helpers. Now, I'm not opposed to making over $100,000 a year, and my husband makes 70. That we'll still put our, crumbs together and make it do what it do.
That's right.
But that's just how, even though I wasn't brought up in a spiritual household, that's how my household where I grew up kind of was laid out. Even if it was times where, my mother may have made more money than my stepfather, that's was my mother expectations. Maybe that's where I get it from. But I'm a nurturer. I'm very submissive. It's just that if you're, if I feel like if you don't have like the basics or if we're not on the same page, there's no way I'm going to submit to you. I just feel naturally I want to submit. I enjoy cooking my family food. I enjoy washing their clothes. That's how I show my love. Different people show love differently. I show my love by, cooking them a hot meal, rubbing their back, asking them it's okay, being motherly, being, feminine towards them. I enjoy that. So, that's basically all I wanted to add. If y'all wanted just to hear or even care about what I think.
I care. I appreciate that.
Tina, that's a very valid point. And like you said, it's what you enjoy. And again, as we get into marriage, like Cookie said all the time, you have to want it. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy being married and the idea of marriage and what everything that it entails, that it goes with. I tell anyone that I know that's been in a long-term relationship, I said, well, if you've been with this person for X amount of years, you done had a baby here, you done had a baby there, why haven't you got married? And I just look at it from the standpoint of health. I was talking to a young man the other day. He's been with his girlfriend for 10 years. 10 years. And I said, just as long as I've been married. And I said to him, well, you know what? Let's just look at it from this standpoint. You drop sick right here today and tomorrow. You drop sick right now. Who they got to call in order to save your life?
I say that all the time. And a lot of men wait until they rusty and dusty. And
right. They got to call that.
Don't even work no more. And now they be like, I think I want to settle down.
Or the mama done passed, everybody done passed, grandmama done passed. So now they got to search for your next of kin in order to save your life. Whereas I said, hey, I'm married. They need to do something. They go to my wife. It happened. I had to have emergency surgery, and I was unable to give consent. And they had to call my wife, and she had to give consent in order to do that. They didn't do that they didn't ask to call nobody else in my family. And when my wife was with my daughters, and having one of my daughters had an emergency situation, and her mother was right there, and her mother got very fire hot because the doctor came out and said, well, this is going on with the baby. What do you want us to do? the mother said, "Oh, save my daughter, blah blah blah, go after my daughter." And he said, "Well," and the doctor said to her, he said, "Are you the husband?" He said, "No, I'm her mother." He said, "You're not the husband, sir.
Right,
This
right.
is what's going on. What do you want us to do?" So just something like that is, with the way life is now, as precious as life is, as life is not guaranteed today or tomorrow, something like that is part of, that whole idea, and that like, I understand, and I understood exactly what you were saying, Stacey, when you said you don't need a person for survival, but if it does come down to that survival and you're out there, if you did have someone that was with you in that manner, that person would be able to help you survive and continue living on.
And I agree with you there. And people are just different. People are different. Like, like if a girl try to fight me, I'm okay with fighting her. If a man try to fight me, I'm a windmill him to death and try to mace him. I can't beat up a man. I may have a gat in the car, but can I get to it quick enough? I want my husband to beat him up. If it's a spider in a house, I don't want to kill that spider. I'm going to go get him. If somebody kicked my door in, I'm going to look at him. I'm not going to run and go get the gun.
Interesting.
I'm sorry, that's just my, that's just my point of view. I feel like that's his job.
I'm with you on that one, Tina.
My part of that was, why would you even attempt to fight the guy? Why even windmill and get the mace? Just go get in your car.
I don't have a choice.
I ain't going to go get in your car.
I'm not going down. You're not
I do not have to tell you.
down.
I do not have to tell you that circumstances are not always ideal for that.
Obviously,
take me down.
I know. Come on now. We gotta
just a little levity, everybody.
Stacey, go ahead.
I think in the most basic context of this, what I want to say is I grew up in a very fundamental Christian religion. So I understand the religious sense of submission, to get back on track to what we were talking about. Now I'm a spiritual person. My leanings are more spiritual. And to me, what it rounds down to me, what the sum of this comes down to is, I, as a feminine being, love, desire, want to be able to rest in my luscious femininity with a man that is in his full masculinity. And under those, in that context, in that circumstance, there is no issue with being in my femininity and being nurturing and supportive and submissive and loving and caring and all those things. And again, for me, at this stage in my life, it's about the energy. Am I with someone who is going to provide that space for me to be in my femininity? And am I providing space for the man in my life to be in his masculinity in healthy ways? But because we can demonstrate this in very unhealthy, toxic ways.
Very.
Where submission and all this other stuff takes a left. Again, as we started this call and I read the definition, it is truly about volunteering to not be self-centered and to take your partner into consideration, simply put. And I don't feel like that has to be a female versus male thing, but I do understand in the context of my femaleness, of my womanness, of my being as a woman, that role of nurturing mother helpmate is ingrained in me. And I have no issue with stepping into that role willingly, happily, when I am provided that space and I know I'm providing that space for my mate. So I think in the context of submission, there are other things that have to be discussed about providing spaces for each other. You know, so that healthy roles that you choose in your relationship, because I don't think there's any standard roles. You have to develop what the roles are in your relationship. No one can tell you that once, you know, we come into this in a healthy manner, that we can provide that space for each other, and whatever that means. If that means me feeling comfortable enough and trusting my partner enough to be submissive, then so be it. And what does that mean that he has to provide for me? Because it's not just a one-way street. What is he providing for me so that I can feel trusting and comfortable enough to provide him that space to be submissive to him? Because again, there's tyranny. So I'm not looking for that type of relationship. So it is a multi-layered, complex conversation between two people that really have to decide for themselves what that means. So that's it.
Thank you, Stacey.
Much appreciated. With that being said, I will take this time to go into my. We're pretty much at the end of it. I will take this time to go into my little Coach's Corner segment of it. Just give my basic takeaways from this. We all know that relationships don't necessarily have to be complicated, but they are complex. In that there are you know, as has been said here, there are a lot of moving parts to it. There are a lot of nuances and idiosyncrasies and just a lot of layers to what goes into making a healthy relationship. But again, and this is part of one of the carrying phrases that I've been saying through this relationship series that we've been doing the last few weeks. The base word in relationship is relation, and you can't have relations with one person going to the other and nothing being returned. So I would say synonymously, relationships by their nature are reciprocal. And one of the strongest ways that we find reciprocity is in how we can and do even find ways to submit to each other. There is a level of trust that is built when submission is in play. It builds the bonds of relationship for you to be able to say, I can depend on this person to do this, and that adds to our relationship. And I can depend on this other person to do this, and that adds to a relationship. A lot of people, and it definitely has been used in a power struggle sense, where it's like, well, you used to have to submit to me and that makes me better, and so on and so forth, to anybody. And I give absolutely anybody permission to flip somebody the middle finger who talks like that. You can tell them that I said it. You can tell them I said it. Be like, it wasn't me, it's from Chad. It's from Black Chad.
Black Chad.
Because to use submission as a mask for tyranny, it has no play in relationship. To use submission as a mask for
manipulation,
thank you, for manipulation, for establishing some sense of perceived hierarchy, for establishing some sense of superiority, or to enforce inferiority, it has no real play in the grand scope of relationships. And along with that, because I am a self-realization type of life coach, having an understanding of, like we've discussed here, having an understanding of what your relationship goals are, so that you have a baseline for what to submit to. If you're saying, I want my woman to be like this, and a woman comes along that's not that, no, you should not submit to that. Or, I want my man to be like this, that, and the third, and a man comes along and he's not that. No, of course you don't submit to that. So having that understanding of what it is that you actually want out of a relationship, and then seeing somebody show and prove that they fit those guidelines, that they fit those boundaries, that is in my opinion is the baseline foundation for what submission really even is. And it is absolutely not gender specific. It is human specific. This is what we need. For you to say, I'm this type of human being, this is what I need, and then for somebody to come along and say, well, this is what I have. And if what they have matches what you need, then yeah, you can submit to that situation. And it's not a question of being under them or them being over you. It is what they present that you can align with. And even in the sense of aligning with, that is a definition of submission. So that's my take on it. I hope you guys were able to take a lot of that with you. Share it with somebody else, of course. Nini, anything to add? Of course.
I do, of course. I think we covered a lot.
Y'all see how I submitted to her? Hey, I could have said everything. I submitted to her. Hey, you got anything else to add? Because I know I don't cover everything.
Right.
Go ahead.
You guys covered a lot tonight. I think that we just keep it in mind, and we have this. People don't like the word submission, right? Because it was used in negative. It's a bad word. It's a curse word, right? But it's a partnership. So a submission is not anyone taking control over anyone else. It's submission within that understanding of that relationship. And like Chad was saying, once you have that conversation and that person is not who you want to submit to, then you don't do that. That's not, it's not the person that you want to be with. I think that from my experience, and I like to speak from my experience because that's where I can speak from, there's this thing where in our community, we have this thing where a lot of our Black men are feeling forced to say, I want a woman to submit. And if a woman to submit, and that comes off, if you're not gonna, you catch more bees with honey, right? So if you're coming off negative and you're saying all these things, you're not gonna get the woman that you're looking for to submit because you're coming at it the wrong way. I think that, if you have to put that out there, and I'm going to end with this, if you have to put that out there, then that means you're not ready to lead, right? Because a leader is going to, when you go into a company, when you go into your job, your boss doesn't stand up and say, hi, I'm your boss. You're my employee and you're going to do whatever I say. It's already acknowledged because of the stance that the person has. So you don't have to announce yourself if you are a true leader, right? So I want us to keep that in mind, especially within our community, because it's very where the controversy is in our community, right? Other cultures aren't at where we are with it, and that saddens me. But we have to. There's a meeting ground there's miscommunication and disconnection. There's something that we have to get back to, whether it's biblically, spirit, however, wherever it is. But we have to get back to that point where we are allowing our men to lead the household, and we are submitting and being partners within that unit. That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, y'all, next week, which is kind of an extension of this week's conversation, which was an extension of last week's, and so on and so on and so forth. Accountability in relationships. And I'm expecting this one to be kind of a high charge one as well. If you don't know what I mean by accountability, it means learning how to take responsibility for that's building off of these roles and something we were talking about, learning how to take responsibility for what you're saying that you're going to do and how to take accountability for when you don't follow through on those things. So accountability in relationships, it's a follow-up to this one. So spread the word. Of course, we'll have an ad up for you guys. I put the email in the chat box for everybody. If you have a TikTok, a YouTube video that you want us to respond to, if you have a story that you want us to respond to, if you have an anonymous letter that either you or somebody else wrote that you'd like for us to respond to as part of our Him and Her Your Space segment that we're also going to be starting relatively soon, you can send it to that email and we will respond to it. We will put something together for that. So that is that's the email and that's the show for next week for accountability and stuff like that. And we hope that you guys bring a friend. That the link that everybody used for this is the link that we will always use. All right, no new links. So
share.
You guys want to bring people in, bring them in. All right, and until then, we will see all y'all. Thanks to the forum tonight. Appreciate it. Until next week, we will see you guys back here on Him and Her Talk Space, where as always, we have 2 coaches,
1 space,
and 0 reservations.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thomas, it was good seeing you. Thank you for joining.
You guys have a great night.
Bye.